Now we'll go to the prophecies. Those little events show you the charm of her life, though, and that they hold you fast. They make you realize a different world that existed from this lake, secular world we live in today. It was an age where the air was filled with the spirit of faith, and you breathed that faith when you walked out. Today, when we walk out, we breathe in piety, in purity, in modesty. And it's almost impossible to sometimes breathe in this world. I'm only going to relate several of the apparitions of Our Lady where she showed Mother Mariana the terrible blasphemies, immorality, and heresies that would inundate the church and the world in the 20th century. Actually, she pinpointed the time more precisely. She said they would appear shortly after the middle of the 20th century. The exact time of Vatican Council II, that has wreaked such havoc in the church, fulfilling the prophecies. Now, this is not an optimistic view of Vatican II that a lot of conservatives like to give. Oh, we just have to have a reform of the reform. Let's look at the fruit of what happened and see if it does fulfill the prophecies. The prophecy was the spirit of the world would enter the religious sphere. What did we have? The opening of the church to the modern world. And what was the modern world at that time? The hippie revolution, total immorality. And the church opened her doors at that time when she should have shut them firmly and held fast to her doctrine and morals that was the protection of her faithful, of her children. Religious would abandon their rules and the spirit of their orders. What did you have after Vatican II? Under the direction of the Periti, the nuns were encouraged to take off their habits, write new rules. I knew sisters of the Daughters of Sion who told me that several years after the council, they were brought together, told to take off their habits and write a new rule, and everyone would have an equal vote. This has occurred, as you can see, in all the orders. They've left their original rule. They left their original commitment, and they lost the spirit of the order. And what do you have? Empty convents, empty monasteries. And those who are there do not have the spirit of religion or the order. Many that are there. What is another? The sacraments would be abused and abandoned. We've seen that. We know how sacraments were loved and encouraged before Vatican II. Today you have children that don't receive First Communion, for children that aren't baptized, that don't know what confirmation is. A great immorality would invade the clergy, and many priests would be unworthy of their office. I only have to mention the pedophilia and homosexual scandal inside the church for us to realize that the unthinkable has happened. The apparition that I'm going to tell you first was in the early morning of January 20th, 1610. Mother Mariana was 47. It was a year before the statue was made, 1610. And Our Lady came to give the order for that statue to be made and explain its need and importance. Mother Mariana had already undergone a time of great crisis inside the convent, the kind of prefigures the crisis in our church today, because the revolted sisters, the non-observant sisters who were jealous of the Spanish sisters, were trying already to relax the rule and make things softer inside the convent. And for that, they had persecuted Mother Mariana and the founding mothers in terrible ways. They imprisoned them 4 times in the convent prison. And only by a miraculous way was Mother Mariana finally reinstated, the truth become known to the bishop, and the peace returned to the convent. But you can see that there was a kind of already Vatican II inside the convent, and that Our Lady in the end brought that peace. Let's return to that apparition of January 20th, 1610 in the early morning. After giving the order to have the statue made, Our Lady said, "Thus do I make it known to you from the end of the 19th century and from shortly after the middle of the 20th century. The passions will erupt, Doctrine will be corrupted, and there will be a total corruption of customs, for Satan will reign almost completely by means of the Masonic sects. They will focus particularly on the children in order to achieve this corruption. At the end of the 19th century, as most of you know, modernism already had put up its head. It was threatening to do what progressivism has done today, to change the doctrine of the church to modernism, which was condemned by Pope Pius X. It went underground for a little while, as Attila Guimaraes explained in his talk on Vatican II, but reemerged almost more carefully the second time under progressivism. Still heresies, still doctrinal errors, but better disguised. And today we have the victory of progressivism inside the church. What did Our Lady speak about in this apparition that I thought was so interesting is that she went through each of the sacraments and their abuses and their falling into misuse. Woe to the children in these times, because it will be difficult to receive the sacrament of baptism and also that of confirmation. She warned that the devil, making use of persons in positions of authority, would assiduously try to destroy the sacraments of confession and Holy Communion. She lamented the many sacrileges and profanations of the Blessed Sacrament that would occur. We see that today, how confession almost has a different meaning for children than the way we understood it, the way it was always taught, the doctrine of the church. It's been abused and misused. The sacrament of extreme unction would be little esteemed, and many people would die without receiving it, either because of the negligence of the families or misconceived affection for their sick ones. We don't want to get them scared, with the real extreme unction where you anoint all the senses with the oil. So we have a blessing of the sick. And many people don't even care if they receive that, because we're so quick to go and say, oh, don't worry, you're going to heaven. It used to be understood from that grand leap from time to eternity, you needed all the sacramental blessings and grace that you could receive, because that would be the devil's final attack. We don't say the word devil, we don't say the word attack, but people used to prepare for that moment, for that grand moment and the most important moment of life. The sacred sacrament of holy orders would be ridiculed, oppressed, and despised. The devil would labor unceasingly to corrupt the clergy, and he would succeed with many of them. There would be, quote, many depraved priests who will scandalize the Christian people, who will incite the hatred of the bad Christians and the enemies of the Catholic Church to fall upon all priests. This apparent triumph of Satan will bring enormous sufferings upon the good pastors of the church. By the way, we only have one priest in the audience, but you can't imagine the love Our Lady shows for the good religious and clergy. And she encourages them to come to her. I've seen recently many of the young priests in the traditional and conservative orders who are dedicating their priesthood to Our Lady of Good Success, because they read these books and they see her love and her protection that she's willing to give those good clergy who, she says, will suffer veritable martyrdoms. About the sacrament of matrimony, she said this, and this, you'll see how it happened. Masonry, which will then be in power, will enact iniquitous laws with the objective of doing away with this sacrament, making it easy for everyone to live in sin. That happened. Today, it's so easy even for Catholics to live in sin. We have even worse. We have laws that are allowing men to marry men and women to marry women. The Christian spirit will rapidly decay, extinguishing the precious light of faith until it reaches the point there will be an almost total and general corruption of customs. Added to this will be the effects of secular education, which will be one reason for the dearth of priestly and religious vocations. How many of those vocations were lost because they did not receive the good religious education. Instead, they had bad customs, bad morals, the fashions, the music of the time. Something unthinkable in the 16th century. We can see the corruption. I like to stress that what Our Lady prophesied was not just a crisis in the church, but a crisis in society, in Christian civilization. We would lose our good customs that were born from Catholic civilization, proper ways of being, good manners, good dress, dignity in the way we act. How did those good customs deteriorate? Again, the Masonic sects put in bad fashions, bad music, bad movies, and then we had that total eruption of customs, the hippie revolution, that said, men can dress like women, women can dress like men, we want unisex blue jeans and t-shirts, we want everyone, you can do what you feel, there's no more rules, throw them out. What were we throwing out? We were throwing out the rules of Christian civilization that gave us a dignity and a discipline that's demanded to practice the faith. Our Lady continued, in these unhappy times, there will be unbridled luxury, which will ensnare the rest into sin and conquer numerous frivolous souls who will be lost. Innocence will almost no longer be found in children, nor modesty in women. In this supreme moment of need of the church, the one who should speak will fall silent. In the 1600s, it would be impossible to imagine a civilized world where modesty could not be found in women. It would be impossible to imagine a world where there's no innocence, where innocence would almost not be found in children. And it would also be inconceivable that the one at the helm who should be guiding the ship of the church would be leading her into destruction. You can see that we're living in these times, and you can see why these prophecies were reserved for our time. It makes it clear to us what the crisis is, so we can start to fight it. We can acknowledge it. The first resolution to any problem is to recognize the error, instead of putting up little sheets or veils in front of it and saying, it's not quite as bad as we think, we can just reform the reform or do this or that. We have a big job ahead of us. The second extremely significant apparition took place a year before her final death on February 2nd, 1634. February 2nd is the Feast of Our Lady of Good Success, and many of the apparitions took place on that time. The Feast of Our Lady of Good Success is the Feast of the Purification of Candlemas, which in Quito every year is a huge procession, and that procession and taking her out and in has gone on for 400 years now, unceasingly. So it's a marvelous thing. After the shock of what she saw in this apparition, Mother Mariana never fully recovered, and she never left her sickbed. And the new interior sufferings our Lord gave her, she offered for us for these times. She no longer suffered. By that time, she was very loved and esteemed in the convent. Those trials had ended. And in one part of the book that I thought was so interesting was she used to look back with longing at the time of her sufferings. How different from the modern world. We get a suffering and we say, let's get rid of it. She looked back at the time. But it's not really strange, because anyone who has gone through sufferings in life, conquered through faith, you look back at those times with a joy, with a consolation, because you know it made you what you are. And it was a gift from God. I think this is the most impressive of all the apparitions, because in it, she saw something symbolic for our times. She saw the sanctuary light be extinguished in the church. She was praying before the Blessed Sacrament in the early morning when she saw the sanctuary light extinguish itself, leaving the altar place completely dark. Then Our Lady, she was shocked, and Our Lady came to explain the 5 meanings of this act, all relevant to our times. The first signified the propagation of heresies at the end of the 19th and into the 20th centuries, which would extinguish the precious light of faith in souls. She said only a small number of souls would conserve the treasure of faith and virtues, and that they would suffer a cruel and prolonged martyrdom. Not a martyrdom like the Japanese in Japan, the priests suffered, not like the Roman times, but it's a psychological martyrdom. If you stand up for what you should, you will be persecuted today. I can promise you. Those destined for the restoration would need great strength of will, constancy, valor, and confidence in God. She also said, to test their faith and confidence of the just, there will be occasions when all seem to be lost and paralyzed. This, then, will be the happy beginning, the complete restoration. The restoration, the beginning that she will enter to help make, will be when everything seems lost and paralyzed. It's why we can't lose confidence. At the very moment when things seem lost and paralyzed, she came to tell us, don't lose confidence, hold firm, because this will be my moment. If that isn't a consolation for us in these times, because all of us have felt that at times, like things are lost, everything is paralyzed, families are in trouble, there's everywhere, there's no longer do you find one firm Catholic family without problems, something that was unthinkable even 50 years ago. The second significance, she spoke of the spiritual catastrophe inside monasteries and convents, including the Conceptionist convent of Quito. Vocations would perish because of the lack of discernment and spiritual guidance. Those with true vocations would suffer a real martyrdom. The third meaning, the spirit of impurity will saturate the atmosphere in those times. Like a filthy ocean, it will inundate the streets, the squares, and the public places with astonishing liberty. Who could imagine that we would see the things we see on the streets today? We've become accustomed to it. We've become accustomed to rings in heads and tattoos all over the body and almost pure immodesty, and no one even blinks. There will be almost, she said, there will be almost no virgin souls in the world. And without virginity, she said, it will be necessary for fire from heaven to fall down upon these lands in order to purify them. Here, perhaps, we have a hint of a chastisement, a purifying and punishing fire that falls from heaven. The fourth reason, on this no more virgin souls, who can imagine? When I was a young girl, I didn't know what all these things that 6-year-olds know today. I didn't know what a homosexual was. I didn't even know what marital life was. We didn't think about those things. And today we have young people exposed to this almost immediately in TV programs, the internet. The schools have it. They're even teaching them to pick out their genders, for heaven's sakes. I didn't even know what a gender was. As most of you who are my age didn't. What gender are you? I thought, well, I don't know. I think I'm Croatian German. We didn't think like they think today. And in that is a loss of innocence for the children. We don't realize the tragedy of that loss of innocence. We need a chastisement so that our children can be innocent again. The fourth reason, the Masonic sects would introduce subtly their teaching into homes as well as schools to corrupt the children. And, quote, the devil would glory in nourishing himself upon the exquisite delicacy of the hearts of children. During these unfortunate times, evil will assault children's innocence. Thus, vocations to the priesthood will be lost, a true calamity. How can you have a true vocation foster when your innocence is lost? How many children had vocations, girls and boys, that were lost because their innocence was lost? During this time, the secular clergy will be far removed from its ideal because the priests will become careless in their duties, attached to wealth and careers. Straying from the divine compass, they will leave the good course to the loss of their souls. A cruel war will be waged on those religious and priests who will sustain the church with valor and disinterested zeal for the salvation of souls. She's talking about a minority here, that small group that will remain faithful to the vocation and have a disinterested zeal for the salvation of souls. How the church, this is the prophecy the progressivists hate. How the church will suffer then from the lack of a prelate and a father to watch over her with pastoral love, gentleness, strength, discernment, and prudence. Because of this lack of good guidance starting from the very top, many priests will lose the true spirit of religion. Then she spoke, this is another hope for the future. She spoke of a man, a prelado, a prelate or great man, that God would send to lead the restoration and repair the damages. Pray incessantly that God end these times and send the prelado, the prelate who will restore the spirit of religion and bring an end to the ominous times. Into his hands the scale of the sanctuary will be placed so that everything is weighed with due measure and God will be glorified. There will be a leader, someone to lead this, because history is made of that. History isn't made of the little man. It's made of the great leaders, the Charlemagnes, the King Louis IX, those who God gave a vocation to bring in new eras. We will have that too. However, she warned, the lukewarmness, it won't be a woman either. It wasn't prelata. It was prelado. However, she warned, the lukewarmness of clergy and the faithful will delay the coming of the prelate. I believe that delay we're in. We should be in the reign of Mary. But it's our own lukewarmness, the lukewarmness of not only the clergy, but the laity, that is delaying the chastisement, that's delaying what we hope for. We become complacent with the evil around us. We get used to it. They say, don't ever build a house too close to a pig pen because you'll get used to the smell. That was what my grandfather always said. And today, we've built our houses right in the middle of pig pens, and we've become used to the stench of immorality, impurity, and we are not begging Our Lady to send the chastisement, to send the prelado, to give a restoration. Then, let's see, I think that was that. The fifth was the surprising one for me when I got to it. I was translating at this time. And when I came to the fifth, I thought, well, this isn't what I was expecting. The fifth would be the laxity and negligence of the wealthy, who will indifferently stand by and witness the church being oppressed, virtue being persecuted, and the triumph of evil, without piously employing their riches for the destruction of the evil and the restoration of the faith. I think the wording here is very relevant. She wants us to employ our riches and efforts, not just for the building of new churches or pious projects or novena groups or a picture here or there. More importantly, she said, for the destruction of the evil and the restoration of the faith. If those with means had entered and fought against the abuses they saw in the church, it would have been a lot harder to go forward. Instead of giving the money for a new church that's a monstrosity, instead of supporting the liturgical dance group, because that's what the church said we should do, you should fight the abuses and for a restoration. This is what's necessary. And she didn't say either, just sit back quietly and wait. God will take care of it. She said they should be employing their riches and efforts for the destruction of the evil and the restoration of the faith. We've lost the church militant because we are no longer militant. After this shocking vision, Mother Mariana was found unconscious in the upper choir. She remained so for 3 days, 3 nights. The sisters thought perhaps she would die again. But she didn't, not for another year. She died on January 15th, 1630. Let's see, what was that? 35. and she was 72 years old. This, however, is not the note to end a talk on Our Lady of Good Success. This all sounds very terrible and frightening, but we can't leave out the message of hope that is so present. She told Mother Mariana that the faith and confidence of the faithful would be tested, and there would be occasion when all would seem lost and paralyzed. This, then, will be the happy beginning of the complete restoration. I don't believe Our Lady wastes a word. She said complete restoration, not restoration. We're talking about a complete restoration, a restoration in era, the same era predicted by St. Louis Marie Grignon de Montfort, the Reign of Mary, the era of Christ, where Christ will reign again on earth in the temporal institutions as well as the religious institutions. And this is a complete restoration. It's not just to have the Mass again, good churches, good clergy. We have to have a Catholic civilization with the Spirit of Christ reflected in the laws, in the customs, in the dress, in everything. For that, we have to start making resolutions to fight the errors of the world, the revolution in the world, which takes effort. The same effort we're told today we don't need to make anymore. Everything is just handed to everyone on a silver platter, not like it used to be. She foresaw a dark cloud descending over the land, a terrible night, metaphor, and a chastisement. That night will be most horrible, for humanly speaking, evil will seem to triumph. Are we in that night, I wonder? I've wondered that 30 years ago. And now today, I thought then, things can't get worse. It's much worse. And it does seem like all is lost and paralyzed. How do you fight when your children are being told that homosexuality is normal? How do you fight when the Pope himself says that some people who live together could be holier than those in marriage because they have more love? How do you fight? Everything seems lost and paralyzed. This will mark the arrival of my hour, when I, in a marvelous way, will dethrone the proud and cursed Satan, trampling him under my feet and fettering him in the infernal abyss. In the end, the dawn will come. How? Clearly by an unexpected and powerful intervention of Our Lady, who will play a major role in raising the dawn of her reign, the reign of Jesus through Mary, foretold by that other great prophet, St. Louis Marie Grignon de Montfort. In the 18th century, he already was foreseeing the reign of Mary. And he also saw, I don't know if any of you have ever read that magnificent fire prayer. And it was meant for these times too, that 20th century. We have it on our website if you want to go and look it up. It's worth reading because it's another confirmation of a crisis and a solution. We have the promise of Our Lady in two church-proved apparitions, at Fatima in 1917 and in Quito 300 years earlier, that the tyranny of the devil will end. The church will be free again. We have the hope to see this prophecy fulfilled, the only one that has not been fulfilled, as you can read in that one book or hear on that one tape that I have where I kind of made a resume of the book, to see this victory perhaps in our day. Before I end, I want to answer two questions usually posed as objections that I often hear, especially from progressivist priests and prelates. This is where this question comes from. Is this an approved apparition and devotion, and why haven't we heard about it before? I answered the second question at the beginning of the talk because it was a message reserved for our times, because we, the people of the 20th and 21st centuries, would have a particular need to turn to Our Lady of Good Success, who promises to hear and answer our requests in these days. But let's go a little deeper into the mystery. The third secret of Fatima was supposed to be revealed to the world in 1960. Mysteriously and tragically, the command was not heeded. Pope John the 23rd read it, closed it, and said, "This message is not for our times." in contradiction to Our Lady, who said it should be opened and read in 1960. Despite this refusal, we have a kind of confirmation of what it could be. The message of Our Lady of Quito warns repeatedly of a crisis in the church and the clergy, both secular and regular. Could this not be part of the message of 1917, still not revealed today as believed by many people, including myself? A general apostasy, the extinguishing of the light of faith, a conspiracy against the church, the dominion of Satan. It is, as Mr. Guimarai notes in the foreword of my book, the first book, as if Our Lady made an insurance policy, knowing as she did the terrible crisis in the church that would come. The third secret was not revealed, as she asked in 1960. But then from Quito, the mysterious cloud lifts, and the world is given the prophecies of Our Lady of Good Success. An apparition approved by the church, now for 4 centuries. The prophecies come to light, prophecies even clearer than the Fatima message about the cause of the present crisis in the church, pinpointed to explode a little after the middle of the 20th century, the exact date of the opening of Vatican II. Why would John the 23rd not open it? He was the one who opened Vatican II. He would have to change his plans had he revealed that it could make an explosion inside the church. The second question is also easy to answer. Yes, this is an approved devotion. It has the approval of every bishop since 1611, when Bishop Salvador de Ribera anointed the statue on February 2nd, 1611, gave his full approval, asked Mother Mariana to write her autobiography, and had biographies written by Franciscans of all the founding mothers. He believed in her sanctity. The next bishop would confer with her, go to her to get advice on the problems of the city. Further proof of this long-standing approbation. In 1991, the Archbishop of Quito, Antonio Gonzalez, who himself is a progressivist bishop, he petitioned Rome and received approval for a canonical coronation of Our Lady of Good Success as Queen of Quito. To be crowned, you have to have a long-standing approval of the church and the approbation of all the bishops. The same year, the convent was named an official Marian sanctuary in 1991. For this, you must prove more than 100 years of continued devotion and the constant approval of the church to become a Marian shrine. Then, I think the definitive proof, in 1986, this same Archbishop Gonzalez initiated the cause of beatification of Mother Mariana de Jesus Torres. He appointed Monsignor Luis, the one who wrote all these books, Luis Cadena y Almeida, the postulator for the cause. And he was sat on the tribunal that examined all the known documents at the time to see if there was the truth in the apparitions. This volume by Manuel Sousa Pereira, they were examined by that commission and found worthy of belief. That tribunal officially recognized that Mother Mariana practiced all the virtues to a heroic degree and acknowledged her supernatural gifts and charismas. Monsignor Almeida wrote a book just on this process. One of these books here is just on that process and how everything was examined. And it has the imprimatur of the Archbishop of Quito. 4 years later, in 1990, Mother Mariana was named venerable. Therefore, and her process is pending. Therefore, it's clear this devotion has enjoyed the support and approval of the Church since its very beginning. Although I believe today, if the bishops could, they would take back that support so that they could not give their support to these prophecies. But because it was a mysterious silence that kind of hovered over it, each one gave their full support. And this commission read everything and gave the full support. A last reminder that I think is very important, and it's one of the main reasons I'm giving this talk. Our Lord and Our Lady promised their assistance to those who have recourse to her under this invocation in our days. She wants to be known now, and so therefore, like a good mother, she comes to the aid of those who come to her under this invocation, calling on her as Our Lady of Good Success with their trials and sufferings. This is what she's done throughout time. When the scientific revolution was taking the age of reason, she came at Lourdes, and she worked miracles of cures to help break that scientific spirit that said you have to have a reason for everything. All of a sudden, hundreds of people who prayed to her under the invocation of Our Lady of Lourdes received cures of their body, and she became known. Whenever she wants to be known, she gives answers when you pray under that invocation. I can attest to that from personal experience. I know people who have. If you go to her with confidence, she will come to your aid. In one of the last visions on December 8th, just a month before 1934, right before her death, Mother Mariana saw the three archangels descend from heaven. All were carrying symbolic articles. One of them was Saint Raphael, who was carrying violet stoles. And Our Lady explained the meaning that these are for both priests and laity of both sexes who will dedicate themselves to propagating my devotion under the consoling invocation of Our Lady of Good Success, which will be the sustenance and safeguard of the faith in the almost total corruption of the 20th century. We can see the last part of the prophecies have been fulfilled. We are in a total corruption. So we can expect the first part will be fulfilled too, that she will come to our aid if we come to her and if we help to spread this devotion. And we invoke her under this invocation. If I were asked to give 2 points in summary of this talk, I would say it confirms the great crisis in the church. Don't close your eyes to it. We are in a great crisis. And with great accuracy pinpointed to a little after the middle of the 20th century when it would erupt through the world. We also have the confirmation of a great chastisement. Second, we also have a message of hope. She left us her miraculous statue and a promise. And in that statue, she's a queen and a mother. We see her. She communicates a grace to us that whispers in our soul that we need only confide. And she will give everything. She will resolve everything. She left a promise of triumph. At the moment when all seems lost and paralyzed, that will be the happy moment of her intervention. The moment when the restoration will begin. In these terrible days when we're surrounded by so much darkness and sin, so many troubles and woes, she does not want us to forget that promise of triumph. That's why I hope this devotion will grow, that you who are listening here will read more about her, come to know her, pray to her, and experience for yourself the intercession of Our Lady of Good Success. Thank you.